All right, welcome to this one. It's an unfortunate day. I guess every day is an unfortunate day for some people. 'Cause people tend to die in this world to make room for babies, I suppose. Um, you hope that's the best way you can kind of think about it. Uh, the problem is that it's a bit easy. It's a bit easy to kill people when you have high capacity magazine, automatic weapons, the coordinates people's households, chips inside their brains, freaking juice inside their arms, when you control their food supply, when you control their education, when you control everything about them, when you keep them like sort of fat and stupid, when you control their education, it's incredibly easy to sort of white people out when you can determine what's kind of going into them. And it's a lot of trust for us to believe that the people who we put in charge, because remember, the government belongs to you. Like, you own your rulers. Like, it's a two-way relationship. They believe that they own you, but what they really do is they're responsible for you in the same way a parent is responsible for a child. And a parent who fails his responsibility to their child is usually punished by the greater community. And so too with rulers or governments or regulators or anything. That's just to put aside the Second Amendment argument whereby, like, we're gonna keep the government back just by force of guns. And I guess it's like, who polices the police? Uh, it's everything is a delicate balance. We're all perched on this wobbling sort of thing that could be knocked over if you breathe the wrong way. I mean, anybody in any kind of power is aware how, like, fragile their hold on that power is. And that's often why they go through great lengths to sort of secure it in a lazy way, and often in a way that has great costs. But this song, Soon Come, is by and large, it's about, you know, it's about this time that eventually I hope to make it to, when we don't need to carry guns on our hips. We don't need swords on our hips. Like the ukiyo-e, the floating era, like where the samurai had, like, where it wasn't about the 100 Years War, the long war thing or whatever. Like, I like this era of peace. I like being able to raise my children in peace. I like, having my kids not having to worry about sort of shooting each other or shooting people. Like, my goal in this life is to make it through without having to kill another human being. Like, and that, sometimes it's like, oh, that's real simple, it's real, easy, but that requires a tremendous amount of strategy. Lao Tse, like Lao Tzu or whatever, one of the things he says is, by the time you're fighting, like by the time the soldiers hit the ground, you've already lost the conflict. So there are ways that we can prevent world happening whereby, like, we have to shoot each other, and sometimes that requires us to be, if not armed, at least capable. Yeah, like, which is, that's a legitimate kind of thing. I've practiced many martial arts in order to not need to to have a gun someplace to feel confident. You got to keep your awareness, got to keep your feelers out. And even then, like, you can, if basically, the more secure you think you are, the less secure you are. If you had like a giant wall, you're locked behind your wall. If you have like a security system that looks out, then you're probably not looking in at yourself, and not monitoring your own health in the right way. Like, death comes from everywhere, and it comes for us all. And today, like, we lost Nipsey Hussle, who was a good brother, Eritrean, an African American brother from Los Angeles, young man who was doing his best. He put out a FDT, like, stuffed Donald Trump kind of tune with YG that got a little bit of push, and he was actually doing really good. Like, he was, when they say, you got to leave the hood. We complain about people leaving the hood. He was one of the people who didn't leave the hood. He was right there trying to look after all his people, and they came for him. They capped him out in front of his building. I don't even know who they is at this point, but the overarching thing, much like with Christchurch, is it's gun violence. Gun violence disproportionately, targets people in lower socioeconomic kind of backgrounds. They give two people, two of their potential opponents, guns, and then set them on each other, whether it's Bloods and Crips or Blacks and Whites, or, like, just anybody. Like, they love the divide and conquer thing. It's real easy. So far too often, Even if you want to say, like, you can see it in prison, like blacks and Mexicans got along in the 70s, and in these days the way that they maintain the prison population is by like separating the gangs into these little ethnic fiefdoms, so that one prison master, yeah, and a couple of guards can hold it down, a whole prison full of like 1,000 people. You set people against each other. So there's just so much to guns, there's so much to these weapons. There's a lot to be said for peace treaties and for us cooperating with each other so that we can get ourselves out of this condition that we find ourselves in, so that, again, like young men like Nipsey Hussle don't have to die, don't have to get shot in the head, don't have to put their family through that trauma, don't have to put the world through that trauma. For the people who are attached to his music, his vibe and his spirit lives on always. He did manage to make a second self. That's like to make people aware that it is kind of important. If you can have children, have children. Like, and if you can't, then look after some children, because that's the future for us. Like I say, death comes for us all. How we live forever is through our children and through the art and culture that we leave behind. Anyways, this song is Soon Come, because I still believe actually wrote this song in LA when I was living there in like 2000. No, not even 2000, 1997. And it's just, soon a time will come, we can put these guns away, time will come. And I sing it on different points throughout time, and it always kind of feels true, because I hope that there is a time that we can de-escalate, and I guess trust each other, because our greatest threat on this planet is each other. Our greatest threat on this planet is ourselves. And that's why, like, guns are the biggest tool for suicide, successful suicide, especially in America. Like, most of the time, the gun is statistically a larger threat to you than it is to anybody else, to you and yours, than it is to anybody else. Very rarely do you get to have that, heroic, freaking, die hard moment where you, John, freaking, where you come out guns blazing and save the day or whatever. That's not as popular or as current or even as real as people think. And if you do have a weapon, like, Lord, please be absolutely skilled in maintaining it. Like, don't be a sociopath. Look after your mental health. Obviously, like, know how to discharge it, know how to aim it, know how to keep it safe, know all the proper training, know how to aim, you know exactly what you're doing with it. So none of this like half-ass hiding behind your gun thing. Like, it is a huge responsibility to have that kind of weapon, like, to have that kind of power. And also know, I think anybody who understands guns, especially the way cops shoot, people with wallets walking at them, that the gun is in no way, shape, or form like any kind of insurance for your actual safety if you don't have some martial aptitude or whatever. You understand that people can get to you quick, and if you aim a gun at somebody, you better be willing to use it, because otherwise they're going to take it from you and shoot you in your own head. And I just don't want to have to think about any of this stuff. Not just think about it. I don't want this for the youth. Yeah, like, what's that, like? Don't thank my people for the guns in the ghetto. How you bring them out there? You bring them down there. We don't have no gun factory up and out the ghetto. How you bringing them down there? A soldier man come to shoot I down like Bird Pond friends. Hey, you bring them down there. This is a long one, man. I'm just putting my thoughts in about it. I really constantly, absolutely pray and work towards a time when we don't need those kind of weapons. Like, we just don't need it. Like, we can put the guns away, we can put the bombs away, and we can live in harmony. And I know that takes work, and I know that's life's work. And I know that every time I do it amongst people that I'm associated with and affiliated with, and in the places that I am, that I'm making it a little bit easier and a little bit better for the youth who come after me. So everybody bless up, increase the peace. I love you. Rest in peace, Nipsey Hussle. And that's today's process video.